The St. Louis Blues set a franchise record. Let's talk about it.
Hey, this is Brayden Chen. Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On Blues. I am your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today, Locked On Blues, I'm going to talk to you about the Blues' new franchise record of 12 straight wins. That is correct. After the Blues defeated the Colorado Avalanche this weekend, they have now won 12 straight games, setting a franchise record. I'm going to also talk to you about players who have stepped up throughout these 12 games, considering the fact that a huge part of this team is missing in Colton Parayko. And finally, I am proud of the Blues no matter what. There's a saying, and it's, you can't win everything in life. However, for the St. Louis Blues, I just could not see them losing any of these 12 games with the dominance that they have played with. So I know that they have a lot of tough competition coming up this week. And I think it's really important for all of us to remember that winning 12 games in a row is a huge accomplishment within its own. So we're going to talk about that. We have a lot to get into on today's episode of Locked On Blues. So let's just get started with the fact that the Blues set a new franchise record, 12 straight wins. In 2018-2019, the Blues set a franchise record of 11 straight wins. The other night, after the St. Louis Blues defeated the Penguins 5-4, they tied that record, and I was excited. I was buzzing. I have to say, when it comes to the Penguins, I know people were like, oh, that wasn't a good team. Well, they still have good players, and they still match up very well against the Blues. And I think it was a game of resilience, right? Where the Blues really had to play tough and hard to make sure that they got that, the 2 points. However, that made it 11 wins in a row. The Blues were going to be hosting Colorado, the final game of their homestand. And I'm going to be completely transparent and honest with you. I was not nervous at all about this game. I think I was less nervous about the Avalanche than I was about the Penguins. I know that for whatever reason, and this is something that I have figured out with this team, is that they usually play down to their competition. What do I mean by that? When they play the San Jose Sharks, they don't play the same way they play the Dallas Stars, in a sense of they kind of play to the same level that their opponent is. And again, that's just been a pattern that I have noticed with this team. So obviously, one of the worst teams standing-wise in the NHL comes to St. Louis, I get a little bit nervous because I don't know if this team is going to still play to their competitive nature that they would play against teams like Dallas, Colorado, Winnipeg. I just don't know. So I think for me, that game against Colorado, and I know that you and I have not talked about it because it was on a weekend. I did a short, so make sure to check it out on the YouTube channel. But that game for me just solidified everything that I have felt. You can't say that the Blues only can beat bad teams. I see that, that narrative all the time. And that was something that Coach Montgomery was also asked too after the game about the narrative, right? About, well, the Blues had an easy schedule. Well, okay, let's calm down for a second. While the teams that the Blues have played maybe are not the most competitive teams in the NHL, the Blues had to deal with a lot of back-to-backs. And they actually, amongst every team in the NHL, had the most back-to-back games. So when people say easy, sure, maybe the opponents are less of a challenge than some other teams had to face. Absolutely. But it's not easy to play back-to-back games. It's not easy to actually have an extended time off between games. The Blues' schedule this year, in my opinion, was not an easy schedule. And every single NHL team plays every single NHL team. So it's just different patterns and verifications. Oh my gosh, why can't I say that word? They just basically, to sum it up, I can't speak. I'm kind of like the Cardinals right now. They just play a bunch of games that end up being back-to-backs, and I think that actually makes it challenging. So I would like to make the argument that the Blues actually have one of the harder schedules. Anyways, let's talk about this win over the Avalanche because I was very proud of my boys for this win. 49 seconds in on the power play, Zachary Bolduc scores, giving the Blues a 1-0 lead, assisted by Robert Thomas and Cam Fowler. Finally, it wasn't done yet for the Blues in the first frame as Jake Neighbors was able to score. He got his 22nd goal of the season and assisted by Robert Thomas, making it 2-0. Take note, Robert Thomas with both assists. Finally, in the second period, 1 minute in, Boucher scores with a snuggie assist. Now, initially it was Robert Thomas. However, they did take that away. So that was a little disappointing. Happy for Snugs. Do not get me wrong. However, I would have loved it to be all of the assists by Robert Thomas. Anyways, second frame still. About 8 minutes in, Zach Bolduc with his second power play goal is again assist Robert Thomas and Cam Fowler, which makes sense, right, with the power play unit. But 2 power play goals for Zach Bolduc, so halfway through the game, he was on hat trick watch. Ross Colton and Miles would score, cutting the Blues' 4-0 lead into half, so then it's 4-2 heading into the final frame. Final frame. I can tell you, there was a lot of opportunities. There were some opportunities for Snugs, for Bolduc to get his hat trick goal, but unfortunately, those guys couldn't connect. Nathan MacKinnon scores, making it a 1-goal game. Luckily, though, with 31 seconds left, Robert Thomas scores an empty netter and makes it 5-3. And then with 9 seconds left, the Avalanche are able to score, with the final score being 5-4. Now, after the game, Coach Montgomery did say that he wasn't happy with the Blues' last 8 minutes of play. And I can understand that. I mean, the puck was mostly in St. Louis's defensive zone throughout the whole time. So I get where Coach was coming from. What I would like to say, though, is that the Blues played a hard, competitive game. Obviously, it's not ideal when, your opponent makes it a 1-goal game after you had a 4-0 lead. But after Robert Thomas got that empty netter, I just felt like, fine. I understand that maybe some people were annoyed, but again, Colorado is such a good team, and especially having that extra man on ice when they pull their goalie, it makes them even more dangerous. So I was really proud of the Blues. Besides that, the Blues, I mean, if you think about it, Colorado had 39 shots on goal, which is quite a lot, okay? And I personally believe that Jordan Binnington had a good game. I mean, at the end of the day, he saved 35 out of the 39. Like, that's maybe not the best, but whatever. Tomer had 1 goal, 3 assists. Bolduc was 2 goals. And then Fowler actually had 3 assists. And Robert Thomas was named the 3rd start of the week today throughout the whole NHL. Tomer has been absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's a player that we're going to be talking about later in today's episode in the next segment. But overall, it was a great win, a franchise record win. And that is why I think I'm over the moon, is because the Blues were able to do something that surpassed what they did in the Cup winning season. And I feel like with that Cup winning season, it set the tone, right? It set the tone of expectations for this team where you can really never count the Blues out. And with the win against the Avalanche, at least for me, it just made me feel more confident about the St. Louis team. Obviously, Coach Montgomery talked about the power play and how he was really proud of what the Blues did on that. Again, 2 goals on your power play is phenomenal, especially for this Blues team that struggled on the power play quite a bit. But the Blues now improve their winning streak to 12. Since the break, 17, or is it 18-2-2? But 17-2-2, I think. Either way, this team is dominant, phenomenal, outstanding, resilient. And if I'm being a little bit biased, because I'm going to be biased, the best team in hockey right now is the St. Louis Blues. And I say that, and you might say, well, they don't have the best record in the NHL. You're right. They don't. But they have the longest win streak in the NHL all season. without a couple of key players, which is why coming up, I'm going to talk about some players that stepped up for me throughout these games. But first, I'm going to talk to you about my friends over at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. I've been in a spot where I needed to hire someone yesterday, and the pressure, it's on me. And every day without the right person is a setback. And that's exactly when Indeed sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying, you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring Indeed, it's all you need. Wow, 12 games in a row. But I mostly want to focus on the fact of a couple of things. Colton Parayko hasn't been playing. Colton Parayko, obviously, he was ruled out weeks ago at this point and hasn't been on the ice. However, he is expected to come back closer to the playoffs, which again is something that I really didn't think we were going to see this season at that time when he was ruled out. So I'm really happy for him. Anyways, players stepped up tremendously on this Blues team. And I'm going to just talk about a couple players defensively that I have been just over the moon with. Cam Fowler. You can't tell me Cam Fowler wasn't one of the best moves the Blues have made this season. I know that he spent 993 games with the Anaheim Ducks. Okay. He spent a lot of time with Anaheim, most of his career. But I feel like right now with the Blues, this is maybe the most kind of outstanding performance that I have seen from him for a while. What I mean by that is this. With Anaheim, he kind of blended in. With the Blues right now, he is standing out and he is becoming notoriously one of the best defensemen on this team. You know what? I'm going to say this. He is the best defenseman on the Blues right now with Parayko being out. And that's how it is. I mean, every single time I'm watching Fowler play, I feel like I am watching prime Cam Fowler. And that is something that you don't always see out of a guy in their early-ish mid-30s. And I think that's what we're seeing out of him. He has been nothing but outstanding, especially stepping up big time on defense. Another player on defense that I feel like makes a lot of good contributes a lot and does a good job is Ryan Suter. Maybe Suits doesn't always have the points that go with how he's playing, but he is a big playmaker on defense, big body. And again, he's this huge veteran presence, which I feel like helps the guys like a Tyler Tucker, maybe even a Philip Broberg. And Broberg has been fine too. I feel like sometimes with Broberg, he gets, a little bit blended in. It doesn't really stand out too much, but he's doing his job. And I think that's what's most important. Offensively, and again, I know Holloway has been out for a couple of games now, but he has been outstanding. Dylan Holloway has stepped up big time. One of the best decisions that Doug Armstrong has made in the past couple of years was the offer sheets to Edmonton for Dylan Holloway and Philip Broberg. The impact Dylan Holloway has made on the Blues, phenomenal. It is phenomenal. He is having his best season, and I believe it is because he is playing as a top 6 forward. He's getting opportunities on the power play. And it's not a disrespect to Edmonton, but they really weren't utilizing him properly. Now that I'm watching him play with the Blues, he is a great goal scorer. He is so smart on the ice, has such a great sense of space, and his hockey IQ is phenomenal. He's really able to read the ice quite well. So I feel like for me, Dylan Holloway has been one of the most impactful players. And it's funny, I was having a conversation today with somebody, and they wanted to compare Penn State to St. Louis Blues hockey, because obviously Frozen Frenzy will be in St. Louis. And they said, who is a player that really just stepped up? They're not a rookie, but maybe still young and people didn't know much about. And I said Dylan Holloway. Dylan Holloway, again, is a star in the making. Am I biased? Absolutely. But I know what I am seeing when I'm watching him play. I didn't think that there was going to be a player like a Robert Thomas that could be so impactful offensively for the Blues. And I see that the Blues have found that within Dylan Holloway. And I'm just really happy for him and his opportunities. I think he will be playing relatively soon, but I think the most important thing is the transparency from Coach Montgomery and the organization. And again, it doesn't seem like this injury, this setback, will be for much longer. So obviously, I'm expecting to see him once the playoffs come, maybe a little bit before then. Finally, Robert Thomas. There is no doubt Robert Thomas is the most vital player on the Blues. When he was injured in the beginning of the season, I panicked because, again, when your best player is injured, that draws for concern. However, that team at the time, they actually did a little bit okayish, and then they kind of didn't. So I was like, Robert, we need you. The impact Robert Thomas has on the Blues is something that you can't even put into words sometimes. When I watch him play, and this is very interesting, and I actually encourage you in tonight's contest to watch this from him. Watch where he is looking. He's usually looking side to side to see if he can make passes. A lot of guys, when they have the puck, they usually look straight away, look to the goal. He looks to see if he can make any passes. And that's why he has so many assists on the season. It's because he is the least selfish player I've ever seen play hockey. I mean, 54 assists. What can you say about him besides a truly selfless, not selfish, selfless player who is always looking for the best opportunity for this team to get a goal? And that is why he is so vital. I mean, his face-offs, he does quite well on, great on the power play. I mean, there's nothing really bad I can say about Robert Thomas. Great puck control, awesome hockey IQ, but he has stepped up big time. Another player, again, who I feel like does not get enough recognition is Jordan Kyrou. Plays great hockey. I believe it's 33 goals now on the season. 3 straight seasons with 30-plus goals. So great job for Ruzi. Bushi. How about Bushi? Bushi has been playing great hockey too. Again, like it's funny with Bush, right? Because he's one of those players where I feel like people just kind of don't talk about him as much because of maybe Robert Thomas or Ruzi. But Bushi has also, I know that he got the goal, which was his 17th of the season. So again, maybe not like the most goals he scored in a season, obviously. However, he is still consistent, and he's been in and out of the lineup throughout the season with just different things. So again, it's not like he's played every single game. Finally, we got our guys in net, Binnington and Hofer, and both of them right now have this awesome goalie tandem going on. I really do believe that Jordan Binnington is always getting these awesome saves, and no one talks about it because of how huge and dominant this offense has been. The Bingers looked phenomenal. Again, big body presence in net, does such a great job. And the young Joel Hofer, how about Hofs? Stepped up completely. I mean, he's played a good amount of games this season, and I feel like he's actually done a very good job in net. Now, in the playoffs, I really just want to see a big Binnington because I do believe that that is the best chance for the Blues to make it to the second round. Look at me getting a little bit excited. But again, Joel Hofer has done an amazing job. And finally, not a player, but Coach Montgomery. What he has done for this team is something that is super special. After getting fired by the Bruins, he has now come into the St. Louis team and has been able to turn this team around. And I have to give him all the credit. I said to you before that I believe that he should win the Jack Adams, and I still stand by that. He has been a huge game changer for the Blues. And I feel like coaches too should get recognition. So of course, one of the most vital people who have stepped up is Coach Jim Montgomery. All right, finally, I'm proud of the Blues no matter what. I'm going to talk about tonight's game coming up. But first, I want to talk to you about my friends at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building with wealth. When I started using Monarch, I just realized how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I budget a lot smarter. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. All right. I am so proud of this Blues team, and I just wanted to say that. I understand that these next couple of games will not be easy. Winnipeg, Edmonton, Seattle, and then hosting Utah. I don't think this is going to be, they're going to win out. They might. But that's why I wanted to say this just in case. I am so proud of this team. They did something that I really did believe was impossible for them to do. And again, 12 in a row is a huge accomplishment. 12 consecutive wins when you think about it. Unbelievable. So I'm very proud of the Blues. Again, an accomplishment that will forever be marked in Blues' history. Franchise history will always be the 2024-2025 season. So when you think about it like that, it is a very cool thing that the Blues did. Record team. Okay. They said history for the Blues. So very cool and awesome to see. All right. Let's talk about tonight's lineup because I have some thoughts. So right now in the first line, Robert Thomas centering to the left. It's Bushi. To the right, it's Snuggie. Second line centering is Captain Braden Shen. To the left, it's Jakey Neighbors. To the right, it's Ruzi. Third line centering is Sonny. To the left, it's Matthew Joseph, Mojo. And then to the right, it's Zachary Bolduc. Finally, that fourth line, the WTF line, centering it's Foxa. To the left, it's Turbachenko. And to the right, it's Nathan Walker. Defense, we have Cam Fowler, Nick Leddy, Philip Roberg, Justin Folk, Ryan Suter, and Tyler Tucker. Finally, in net, it's Joel Hofer. So right now, the Blues have a chance to clinch their spot in the playoffs with a regulation win, and you need a regulation loss by the Calgary Flames. So there is a good amount at stake for the Blues tonight. However, I feel like the Blues, if anything, they're able to do that. And again, it's going to be tough, right? Not going to be easy, but it is phenomenal. The Blues right now, 43, 28, and 7 on their season. Whew. Who would have thought, right? Coach Montgomery said, how proud I am of this group and that they're able to come all the adversity we've had this year. We've overcame it. Just playing the right way, and I'm proud of that group for exactly what they've achieved. So again, it is awesome. 3-game road trip, right? 4 games left of the regular season and 93 points, which is super exciting. Anyways, the Jets right now, they're 52, 21, and 4 in the season, and they had a 3-game road trip. They did lose to the Utah Hockey Club 3-0, which kind of gave me a little bit of hope because I'm like, oh, if they did that, maybe the Blues would have an opportunity to win. But again, the Blues right now have been phenomenal, earning points in 15 out of their last 16 games, which is the most points in an NHL team. So since March 5th, which is pretty cool, right? Cam Fowler with 3 assists Saturday versus Colorado. Huge thing for fouls. Right now, Halls and Texier are dealing with injuries, and Dvorsky was recalled, by the way, ahead of this road trip. I know that he's not in the lineup tonight. However, he is there if needed. All right, St. Louis, we have some hockey to watch tonight, but make sure to subscribe to this channel at Locked on Blues. I am so excited to hopefully have a Blues victory tonight, and I will talk to you tomorrow, hopefully the 13th win in a row. But again, super huge accomplishment that this team achieved with their 12 straight wins. I'll talk to you later, and just like always, let's go Blues.